Shawnee or San
San Diego.
Oh, I did see that. That was not good. It was all over the paper. Yes. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, everyone. Welcome to our meeting this morning, July 29th. I'm Shelley Bueller. I have the honor of serving as chair of the commission alongside Commissioner Bob Archer and Commissioner Kevin Cook.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Madam Clerk, the first item, please.
The first item is item 3, consent agenda.
Are there questions on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Cook and second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk, number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Madam Chair, we have one set of vouchers this morning dated July 26th, 2013, in the total amount of $699,857.37. And I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
So motion by Commissioner Archer and second by Commissioner Cook. I do have a question. We had held a payment to Quiznos, and
We should release that payment with the amendment of the contract, which we took up on Thursday.
on Thursday, yeah. I didn't know if that action had been taken.
I haven't had a chance this morning to check, but I will check when I get back.
Okay. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Why don't you go ahead and just make that a separate motion?
Move to release the payment to Quiznos. That was held from Monday, the 22nd.
22nd, okay. There's a motion by Commissioner Cook.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
Move approval.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Archer. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Item B, Kansas Expo Center, number 1, consider approval of requests for capital expenditures for the following. A, replacement of a Microtech computer on chiller number 1 at a cost of $6,100.68. B, treatment for termites in the Center Cafe at Domer Arena at a cost of $1,554.72. And C, repair of the spill containment bucket on the unleaded fuel underground storage tank at a cost of $1,537.35.
Good morning, Commissioners. H.R. Cook, General Manager, Kansas Expo Center. I'm more than happy to answer any questions on any individual item you may see.
And these have all been reviewed by the advisory committee as well.
They have been reviewed by the Capital Committee, and unfortunately, we do have some termites in the Center Cafe that we're taking care of.
I was just going to ask, what's the ending balance after we approve these expenditures?
The ending balance for this week will be $4,935.86. We are preparing a memorandum that should be on the County Commission for Thursday to replenish this capital funds. So.
And I think you indicated you could replenish that fund through operational means.
Yes, through some surplus that we had last year through operations, and then replenish that. It should get us through the end of the year, but no promises.
Thank you, HR. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's a motion to approve the request by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We had a great Shawnee County Fair this weekend. The mini tractor pulls were wonderful, and Vegas Pee Wee and Vegas Larry the Cable Guy stuck around all weekend and were a big hit. So.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you.
Item C, planning, number 1, presentation of Shawnee County Natural Resource Inventory and Assessment.
Good morning, Commissioners. Barry Beagle, Shawnee County Planning Department. I'm just going to make a couple of quick comments, and then I'm going to turn it over to Heidi Mell, who is the doctoral candidate from KU, who is lead with regard to this research effort, and Tom Hunsinger, who's with the Upper Wakarusa RAPS program. This is the culmination of a 2-year effort by the Upper Wakarusa RAPS, and for which I, for one, am very thankful for this project because Shawnee County is a free recipient of this data. And so we're very thankful for the culmination of this effort. This will enhance our planning capabilities. It will give us the ability to understand the natural resource opportunities and constraints that exist within Shawnee County and begin to implement programs that recognize natural resources as a part of our land development processes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over for Heidi so she can make her presentation.
Sure. Thank you. Are there any questions of Barry first?
She showed me how to do this.
And Barry, the Planning Commission has seen this presentation as well, correct?
They have.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you
Morning.
for allowing us to come and present the
Sure.
results of this project to you this morning. This is the Shawnee County Natural Resource Inventory and Assessment. The purpose of this Natural Resource Inventory, or NRIA, is to provide Shawnee County with a GIS-based resource to better inform the planning and development strategies to protect local natural resources. This was completed by the University of Kansas research team for the Upper Wakarusa RAPS group and was funded through a combination of KDHE, by KDHE through the EPA Section 319 Non-Point Source Pollution Control Grant and by Kansas Water Plan funds. So why is the Upper Wakarusa RAPS group interested in providing this resource to Shawnee County? This map shows the Upper Wakarusa watershed in green, and the Middle Kansas watershed is shown in orange. And the city of Topeka here in the middle has this urban fringe delineation around it, which is the area that is projected to likely undergo development in the near future. And you can see this urban development fringe does extend into the Upper Wakarusa watershed. And so anything that happens in this watershed is ultimately going to impact the quality of water in Clinton Reservoir, which we all know is a popular recreational resource and drinking water resource for surrounding communities. And so we are interested in planning that happens in the Upper Wakarusa watershed, but also in Shawnee County as a whole. So the framework of the NRIA uses an environmental conservation lens and will serve as this foundation for land use or development planning. And we have this figure down here is just a generalized four-step process that the planning department goes through. And the NRIA comes into play in steps 3 and steps 4. And that's because it provides these data sets that are consistent with the data sets being used by other governmental and non-governmental agencies. So that will provide you with a resource to coordinate with other local plans, other regulatory agencies, and also provide a basis for intergovernmental coordination. The NRIA will also help to plan open spaces uses, which is the primary consideration when planning new development. You have to set aside those open spaces uses first because it's difficult to impossible to go back later and create an open space use in an area that has previously been developed. It's very costly if you want to do that, so it's better to set those aside ahead of time. The NRIA will also help to create a comprehensive long-term plan for development. So as I mentioned on the last slide, this project provides consistency and coordination towards environmental conservation and contains relevant data sets from different agencies. And this figure shows all of the data sets that are included in this project, and as you can see, it's pretty extensive. We tried to include everything we thought could possibly be relevant to the planning process, and we did divide it into 4 separate categories. Reference data sets, which is things like infrastructure, roads, bridges, culverts, things like that. Base map layers, this shows aerial photography, ecoregions, geology, land use, land cover, things like that. Environmental planning data is basically everything that you might look at when you're creating this environmental plan. And then demonstration areas are maps that we put together that can be loaded as with all of these data sets included, all of the relevant data sets that might help to begin to create this plan. So the NRIA can be used to identify critical areas. These are things like wetlands, stream corridors, critical habitat, steep slopes, and floodplains, to coordinate with other state and federal agencies, and to help develop this comprehensive development plan to conserve the county's natural resources. Whoops. The NRIA contains two parts. There is a GIS-based resource with all of the layers from numerous state and federal agencies. There is some original content that we generated, including slopes generated from a digital elevation model, sand and gravel extraction layer, and there is also a document included that includes the metadata for every data set, every GIS data set, resource descriptions, and specific recommendations for Shawnee County. When using the NRIA, there are several options to personalize content. As I mentioned before, there are these predetermined map files that can be loaded all at once, or the user can load individual shape files depending on what natural resources they'd like to take into consideration, the area being considered. So these maps are very easy to personalize. Most of the files are clipped to Shawnee County, so when you load them, they load the information from within Shawnee County, but whenever possible, we also try to include the statewide or nationwide files so that the user can look at considerations outside of the Shawnee County borders. So just real quickly, I'll run through one of the demonstration areas. This is the Forbes Field demonstration area to kind of show you what this looks like in practice. This is the ArcMap window. This is what it'll look like when you are using the software. And you turn the layers on and off over here depending on which layer is checked. And sometimes with GIS you have to check and uncheck certain layers in order to get a clear view of the area. So this is the kind of the reference layer, and it shows the Upper Wakarusa Watershed, the urban fringe here in the cross-hatched area, and this is Lynn Creek and the Wakarusa River and Croco Road, so you can see all of this infrastructure intersecting with some very important creeks. And the headwaters of Lynn Creek extend up here right next to Forbes Field. And as we describe in the metadata document, headwater areas are very important to downstream water quality. It's very important to conserve sediment and protect these areas, because once the sediment's in the river, once you get down here, there's really no way to remove it. So, switching on the aerial photography layer gives you a little better idea of what's going on in the area, or if you prefer, whoops, you can use the land use land cover area to get a generalized idea of what the land use is in the area. So we have Forbes Field, which is obviously going to be designated as urban area. The brown area is cropland, pasture and hay in yellow. The green isn't showing up real well, but that's forested area. So we'd like to see forested area along these stream corridors to better protect water quality. And orange is grassland. So that just kind of gives you a feel for what's going on in the area. Turning off the land use land cover layer and turning on the wetlands inventory layer gives you the location of wetland areas, and there are different determinations of, or different categories of wetlands shown there. So when you zoom in on this area, unfortunately I couldn't load the software here, but just from the screenshot you can see that you have these little wetland areas, so you could zoom in and see exactly what category each one of those falls into. But one thing I want you to notice is that most of these wetland areas also tend to fall along the stream corridors. The TWIP potential wetlands layer shows not current wetlands, but potential wetland areas. And these were determined using flat slopes, hydric soils, areas that potentially were or could be wetlands in the future. And this is important because if development intersects with a wetland and it is necessary to fill in a wetland, according to the Clean Water Act, you have to provide mitigation for that wetland. And so this layer shows you areas that you might be able to use to provide mitigation for any wetlands that you might necessarily have to fill in for development. This is the stream corridor land use layer. This shows you the land use on either side of the stream corridor. And it doesn't show you the extent of riparian vegetation. It's a consistent width on either side of the the stream blue line. And zooming in a little so you can see, like I said before, we like to see deciduous forest in the stream corridor whenever we can. That helps to filter nutrients, retain sediment, protect water quality. There are some areas where cropland or even urban land has intruded into the stream corridor, and so these provide good opportunities for mitigation or best management practices. This is the slope layer, and it was color coordinated to show flat slopes in green, slopes about 0 to 3% in yellow, 3 to 8% in orange, and above, 0 to 3 is flat, 3 to 8 is yellow, 8 to 14 is orange, and then above 15% is red. So the steep slopes are recommended to completely avoid development, and that is to protect these slopes and prevent erosion and mass wasting of those hillsides. And so once again, you can see most of these yellow or red and orange areas do tend to occur along stream corridors and right at the edge of floodplains. So those are good areas that could be set aside from development. The FEMA floodplain layer shows the 100-year floodplain. This is also an area that is recommended to be set aside from development. Floodplain development requires special permits. And so when you combine the wetland areas, the steep slopes, and the floodplains, it gives you a pretty good idea of areas that could be set aside from development. We also included a rare and endangered species layer, and you can see the Shawnee County has quite a few rare and endangered species, and all of these are aquatic species. So if you are able to set aside these stream corridors, protect the floodplain, you will also be protecting habitat for a number of rare and endangered species. So with that, I will take any questions. Thank you.
That's pretty exciting. I like this kind of stuff, so it's just, you must have an amazing job, and
I enjoy it.
I bet you do. You
Yeah.
can tell that, yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of questions do you have?
The demonstration you gave was for Forbes Field
Yes.
in that area. With the Upper Wakarusa, what exact geographic area? Does that cover all of Shawnee County? Does it go into other counties? What is our exact geographic area for the maps?
For the maps, most of them are strictly within Shawnee County, but like I said, most of the layers, you would have to load a separate layer, but when you open the files, it will have a Shawnee County layer, and then it will have the original layer, which usually is statewide or nationwide. So it could extend beyond Shawnee County depending on what the user prefers.
And for your slopes, how did you obtain the data for the slopes? Did you go out and actually do the mapping? Or?
We use the digital elevation model, which is generated from LiDAR, from flying a plane with LiDAR over the area. And we using GIS processing tools, we processed the digital elevation model into the slope file.
Okay.
Shawnee County provided that data set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then is this information going to be available to the public, for the entire public, or is it just limited to county? What's the release for it?
Well, initially we will be handing it out to county agencies, but eventually we do see it being available publicly.
Okay.
So, and these data sets, most of them are already available publicly, but having it all together as one resource is valuable, we think, to people. So.
Okay. And then I have a question for Barry when we get done, if
Okay.
Commissioner Archer has any questions.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. My only question is, you said that in analysis of this information, there were recommendations. What are some of those recommendations? Could you give us a few highlights?
Sure. Well, some of them were, like I was mentioning in the demonstration area, recommendations to, it's basically based on opportunities versus constraints. When we were writing out the recommendations, we tried to think, what are the opportunities for Shawnee County versus what are the constraints? So like I mentioned with the wetland areas, there's a constraint on wetland areas. You can't develop those without providing mitigation elsewhere. And so the TWIP layer shows you the opportunities for mitigation in other areas. And it also shows you where you might be able to place the development that you could avoid messing, with the wetlands at all. So,
So essentially, it's land use planning.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, that's all I have.
Heidi, could you go back to that very first map that showed, I think it was the
This
largest one, yeah.
The base map?
Yeah.
Sure.
And it shows the upper Wakarusa, and just so we have an awareness, the upper part of Shawnee County then is in the middle Kansas wraps.
Yes.
And so there's another leadership team that helps coordinate projects in that area, and they'll be able to use this information as well.
Our focus is
Tom,
on
go ahead and
Shawnee
come up
County because Shawnee County planning was the,
Go ahead and come up to the podium so we can hear what you have to say.
sorry. I'm the coordinator for the RAPS program in the Upper Wakarusa, and I have a counterpart in the Middle Kansas
Right.
as well.
Right.
So when we started this adventure, we committed ourselves to Shawnee County. It's a political entity. Barry had an interest in the planning aspects of these, as did we. And so we have this combined interest here in doing these things. So our focus and Heidi's effort also was in Shawnee County. So all of the information that Heidi has described here is available for all of Shawnee County. And our interest is in this aspect here in the fringe that contributes to the Clinton Lake water quality assessment. So.
Well, our appreciation for you extending, not just doing the assessment in the Upper Wakarusa, it's going to be very beneficial to lots of different, lots of our agencies that we work with, our departments that we work with, so we really appreciate that.
Well, at the onset, we realized it was going to take more for us to sort this all out and separate my project from
Instead of-
Shawnee County. It was better to just do Shawnee
Just to
County.
do it all together, yeah.
So it was a
Yeah.
good deal for everybody.
Well, I appreciate it. I agree with Commissioner Cook. I think that, having it on the website at some point in time would be very beneficial. But I see this as one portion of land use management. I know it's not all, right? You're the expert in this, Barry, not me. But I do see this as an application for consideration for our Parks and Recreation for long-range planning. I see it for Public Works. I know that Tom uses GIS, and this will be helpful. I also see it, and I think it would be important to present this to Go-Topeka and our Economic Development Organization, and just to have an awareness of it. So you may be busy. We may keep you pretty busy with this presentation, but I think it would be really important for all of those different groups to.
Sure. Yeah,
to
we'd be happy
utilize
to
it.
do that.
So.
Definitely.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Barry,
And I have a
Commissioner Cook
question.
had a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Beagle, as Commissioner Bueller pointed out, this will have an impact on you. During the budget process, you talked about the need for land use planning.
Correct.
How will the Middle Kansas RAPS program and the Upper Wakarusa RAPS program, how will that impact your?
Well, that is one of the first foundational elements that will already be satisfied. So what I've been requesting is the opportunity to retain a professional planning consultant to help us develop a comprehensive plan for Shawnee County. And this is one of the first elements that they assess. They do a natural resource inventory. We understand what the opportunities and constraints are for our natural resources. And then that helps us begin to define rural and urban areas and areas for which we can accommodate growth and not. So with this is one less step for a consultant to have to do.
Okay. And does that have a monetary impact on the county when we're talking about land use development policies?
It would. At this point, I don't know what the monetary impact would be, but we would emphasize as part of an RFP is that this is already completed and therefore wouldn't be necessary for the consultant to prepare that
And so the
element.
consultant would be able to use this data in making their policy recommendations?
That would be the expectation, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item D, Parks and Recreation, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C 366-2013 with Topeka West High School in care of Donnie Palmer for services to be provided in preparation for the 7th annual Big Shunga 8K Run Walk on August 3rd, 2013 at Crestview Big Shunga Park, with the anticipated revenues after costs of shirts and medals of $1,800.50, or $1,800, 50% of which will be shared with the Topeka West High School.
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Luby, Parks and Recreation. Before you today is the contract with Topeka West High School and Donnie Palmer. Donnie Palmer is the cross-country coach for Topeka West. This event is actually it's the 8th annual, not 7th annual, Big Chunga 8K run. It's been a 6K run the past several years, but the majority of the people would like it stretched, so we did an 8K. Donnie takes care of basically the course design, all the coordination. He finds volunteers, which a lot of them are his cross-country parents. They provide a spaghetti dinner the night before. They provide bagels and fruit. It's a good community event, one of our more popular runs that we have in Shawnee County. I do have Lynn Bishop here. She supervises that area and does a very good job with this event. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Randy. Are there questions?
And that is Saturday.
Saturday?
For anybody who wanted to know, 7:30 in the morning.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion to approve by Commissioner Archer, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carries 3-0. Thanks,
Thank you.
Randy.
Item E, County Councilor, number 1, consider approval of Home Rule Resolution number 2013-4, rescinding Home Rule Resolution 93-1, requiring private employers performing work on Shawnee County construction projects to pay federal prevailing wages.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rich Eckert, County Councilor. Those were some wonderful maps we were looking at, but I was waiting for one of you to point out the pressing fact that all it did was remind us of the sheer number of bridges we have to maintain. Commissioners, I want to explain what E1 is because this is more of a housekeeping event than anything else. We, Shawnee County, Board of County Commissioners, are not taking this action of our own accord. We are required by the state of Kansas. The state of Kansas passed a law this last legislative session that basically outlawed municipalities from using prevailing wage on local projects. So in order to clean up our county code, I thought it best to put this on the agenda. You pass this resolution and then we will clean up the code and remove that language. But again, we are required to do this from the state of Kansas. There is one proviso to this, and that is that the feds still require prevailing wage on their projects. So on federal projects, we will still be doing prevailing wage, even if the federal money flows through KDOT. So now what we have to do is we have to, when we RFP, we'll have 2 different RFPs, one for our local projects that only uses local money, and then one for any that uses federal money.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. It's Home Rule Resolution, first reading, correct?
Correct.
Other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Item, Item F, Health Agency, number 1, consider authorization and execution of Contract C 365-2013 for participation in the development of an accountable care organization with community health center clinics in Kansas with no financial impact.
Good morning, Commissioners. Alice Weingartner, Shawnee County Health Agency. This agreement that's before you is actually a second version, a second application that has been developed by the Kansas Primary Care Connection, Inc. This organization did apply for accountable care organization status last year and was not granted it through the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare. So they have put forth a second application, and that's what this is. In participating with this accountable care organization, we would be working with approximately 9 other community health centers in Kansas, as well as a number of family physicians who are members of the Kansas Academy of Family Physicians. Some of the benefits of participating in this effort is that it will give us the opportunity our providers the opportunity to work collectively with providers from across the state to develop measures, work together on developing protocols on how to best meet the care needs of Medicare beneficiaries. Lastly, just as a definition of the accountable care organization, it is an entity that involves one or more Medicare enrollee providers who agree to become accountable for the quality, cost, and overall care of Medicare fee-for-service beneficiaries that are assigned to an accountable care organization. So through this application, the intent is to promote evidence-based best medicine practice, report cost and quality metrics, promote patient engagement, and coordinate that care, with the intent that any savings that is realized during this effort would be shared amongst those participants. I'd be happy to try and answer any other questions. This is all very new
Yeah, it is.
in our world.
Thank you, Alice. Further questions
No.
at this time? I'll move approval of the contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cook. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item G, Commission number 1, 2014 budget.
Let's switch into administrative communications first, and we'll do budget at the very end, if that's okay. Administrative communications at this time? Are there any? Maybe not. Okay.
Executive
We'll
session.
just do, is there a need for an executive session? Okay. All right, so 2014 budget. Commissioners, we've met with all of our department directors and most of the agencies that receive allocations from us. And I believe we have a session scheduled on Thursday to discuss facilities. And kind of in an effort to break down some of the main areas of the budget that affect all the departments' budgets. That was kind of my intent, to start that discussion on Thursday first and then kind of see what we need to talk about in chunks as we go forward. And of course, we need to adopt by, I think, August 22nd is that Thursday. Definitely by the 25th, but the 22nd we hope to have our work finished. So last year was the first year that we did any strategic planning with our budget. Just in looking back at that, from what I can tell on a chart that was provided last year, we had really three main areas: public safety, public infrastructure, and public health. And percentage-wise, we had about, it looked like 40% in public safety, 10% in public infrastructure, and 20% in public health. And the remainder of that was general government, debt, social services. And so not quite sure how it will look at the end of this budget year, but you know, I know that we've mentioned before we want to improve the economic health of our ending balance, along with making sure we're looking at those three areas. But just thought we'd put this on the agenda for discussion, and if we need to give Betty any direction on information we need. Anything? Not at this time?
Not this time.
No,
Okay.
not at this time.
All right. Okay. We will put it on the agenda, discussion for facilities on Thursday. Betty, I think it might be a good idea to prepare for next Monday, to have a discussion on revenue and debt,
Okay.
and see where we're at on those reports.
Revenue and debt.
Uh-huh.
Is that what you said?
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay, all right, thanks. Anyone else want to make any comments on budget? Okay. Well, it's a Monday, I can tell. It's a rainy Monday. All right. No action, no further action before us. We are adjourned.
Just want to let you know know, I'm not gonna run in that, or the run or walk in that 8K run. Last time I got up early on the weekend, do anything.
Yeah, that's
Parks
right.
Rec,